I identify pro-black.
History is about teaching us as a people that we're at war.
I want to speak about the image of our people. We have to be protective of our image.
Our ancestors, they were oppressed, and we are oppressed today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ja and the Kev Show. My name is Ja, and my partner over here is Kev. And tonight we have a nice broadcast that we want to discuss with you. Failing our kids, how the school system is flunking our students. And then the next part that we're going to talk about is, and we're letting it happen, Kev.
Right.
And that's something that we really need to slow this train down and talk about this and discuss this in great detail, because this is more than an epidemic, and I don't hear a lot of us talking about it and then doing something about it. What would you say?
I think this is going to be a great show, man, because I think we're going to go deeper than most people have delved into this, and it's not a simple answer to me, and we'll talk about it. The reason that we're having the show, I know I sent you an article, and what happened is the latest scores came out from the advocacy group of kids at risk, and San Antonio, where we are now, is has the highest share rate of F campuses in Texas, F graded campuses in Texas.
Right.
And from the latest scores, it's 52% of the schools in San Antonio received a failing score. Only 52% only got a passing score.
Wow.
When the state average is 65%.
Wow, that's bad.
So this San Antonio was like the worst in Texas, and it has the highest fail rate in Texas. 15% of its schools have received an F.
Yeah.
As far as, so this is where they go through and they grade the kids. You know, the kids take their tests. Every state has their aptitude test,
right,
to test where the school's at, and also they go out and they test it. They look at the campuses and what's happening. And so San Antonio got a bad mark, and we're sending our kids here locally to this school. But my thing is too, you check for your state. What's happening in your state? Is this a thing that's happening across the country?
I would say that it is, because as you look at the statistics, and they're not lying, even if they're higher than we think. Many of our African-American boys and girls, we can't read, we can't write, we can't comprehend, and that's not their fault. It's a failure as far as the system, and also it's a failure as far as us as a people. And as you just mentioned, that's so true. 91% of Black 8th grade students, African-Americans, score below proficiency in math and compared to other students. And so It's like we have to look at what's really going on here, and not just what's going on here, what are we going to do about it?
Right. Yeah. And what can we do about it?
Exactly.
That's a question too. I think we have to assess the problem, acknowledge that it is a problem. That's going to be a main thing right there. You have to acknowledge that there's a problem before you talk about the problem or how we're going to solve a problem. Are we able to solve the problem, and what steps can we take, or do we have the means also? I think that's going to be part of the discussion as well.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, Kevin. I know I want you to give me what's in your heart, and then we'll go back and we'll dissect it. But if you could give me a grade, as far as not just me, if you can give a grade to us as a people, as far as how we failed our students, knowing that the fix is in. You know, we've been knowing this for a long time as far as the public education system. What grade would you give us as a people, as far as our role, not so much the system, but us in making sure that it doesn't continue to happen?
I believe I give us a C. I think we're about average.
We're about average?
Yeah. I think because we're not doing any less than anyone else. You know, it's not like, well, I mean, I could give my reasons, but I don't think that we're doing any more or less than anyone else is doing.
Okay.
You know, we may be opening up a little school here, trying to start this. You know, Omar Johnson, they may be saying he's doing this. But we're going status quo. I say that we're just going along with the system. I mean, all the other groups are going. It's not like we could say, well, the Asians have their own school.
Right.
The Asians are doing this, or the Asians are trying to implement this in the school system, and I'm just grabbing them out of the blue.
Right.
And we're not doing it. The Hispanics are doing this. They're making the school system change and add their curriculum. They're not doing it. Everyone is just sending their kids to school because that's what we do in America. So we're not doing more we probably are the ones that can least afford to not do more,
Mhm.
but we're not doing more, and people are doing what they believe is right. I don't think many of us know that. I don't think many of us have accepted that there's a problem with Afrocentric or pro-black mindsets of
Mhm.
their kids. I think that many people in any kind of activities we have, it's a fight for us
Yeah, yeah.
to get our people to realize that this is an issue. Even if we say anything that we're talking about doing, boycotts or not boycotting a particular place, it's a struggle. So many of us are just in the comfort zone of we're comfortable sending our kids to the schools that they have, and we just go about our business.
Wow, that's awesome. But I would even give us a worse grade than that. I would give us an F. And you say, well, that's hardcore. But the reason why I would say that, as a people, when you look at what we've been through since we've been here, when we look at the education system, when we look at the curriculum, when we look at the structure, when we look at every year we complaining, as we mentioned, about what's not happening, when you look at these scores, that's below standard. That's really bad. And I think what we have to do as a people is, like you said, first of all, we have to be honest, okay? And we've been complaining ever since the 1800s, and a lot of people don't know this Horace Mann gentleman, but he's supposedly the father of public education in the United States of America. But when you look at the background, when all that came about, what was going on during that time, you see, the curriculum was not built for us. The curriculum, in a sense, where it teaches us how to survive in a racist society, it teaches us, in many instances, how to assimilate. And assimilation is not the thing that we need now, based upon what we've been through all the years that we've been here. So as parents and as educators, like you said, we go along with the status quo. When a person gets an F in public school, which we don't give that at Liberation Academy because our students are not letter grades. But if we talk about why a person gets a low grade, it's because their test scores aren't good. They're not turning in their assignment. When we look at them, poor attendance, and we look at a lack of participation. And so this is why people get failing grades. And when you look at our people, we should deserve a failing grade from the standpoint of, look at us and let's be honest about where we really stand right now.
Yeah. So the failing grade for most of the kids that's getting a failing grade, the attendance thing, that's not the school's fault. Not turning in your homework, that's not the school's fault. That comes at the house. I mean, we have to be transparent about all of this. We're pro-black Afrocentric show, but if that's what we're talking about, the grades that they're receiving in schools, we have to look at if they say Columbus discovered America or whatever you want to say, or this is whatever happened and is skewed in some type of way. If you're answering the test with that information, then you're going to get an A. If you're looking at it from another perspective, that even my A students, Black A students getting an A in class, they're still failing because it's not a true history and curriculum. It's not what the purpose is. The purpose is true education, in which you're doing, you're training us, giving us answers that you want us to answer. And if we do it that way, then they're getting a passing grade. If you don't participate, you're going to get a flunking grade, no matter what type of school it is. So how much of that burden is on our community and the parents when you're talking about grades that they're giving us?
It's basically twofold, because as taxpayers, we're paying to get educated, which you and I know that we're never going to be educated, because once we're educated, when you look at the word education or educare, it's a word that basically means to bring out of, to bring out of the child what's inside of the child. Now, of course, you have to put things in the child. And that's where we talk about how they've put so much nonsense in our children, people discovering things and all of that and just misleading them. But educare means to bring out of. And so we don't understand what a standard education is. I'm talking about many of us, because we've been miseducated. So when we look at the education standard for our youth, many of us don't have an education standard. So we don't care. We just do what you said earlier, which is each year it's the same song and dance. We complain about the system. We complain about all the above, but each year we send our children back to the same demise that we talk about.
See, I don't think that we do that. I don't think we complain. I don't think a lot of Black people complain. I'm not even thinking most Black people complain. I think Black people send their kids to school and they want an A, they want a B. We're talking two different things as far as if we're grading the school system. The school system is failing our kids because of the things they're teaching them. the school may be failing our students because our kids are not engaging and doing things like this. But see, I'm seeing a lot of us do excel. But the problem is, I'm gonna say like locally, Sam Houston High School or say Wagner High School or something like that, ones that have a lot of black kids in it. Those schools are not top tier type schools. So when they're being put into the workforce or going to a higher education, and they're taking the same test to get into college, they're not exceeding like the other kids. So the other kids may be getting a better education. They're receiving the same information, but they're receiving it in a better way, which that's in the way that the school is probably designed. The system is designed for that. We at our schools don't get the best books, the best computers and everything like that. So I think if we're talking about grading the system as far as how it helps us, because we could, like I said, we could receive an A and know nothing about our history. Right. Because we're receiving an A and a bunch of lies. They're receiving the same grades and they're excelling. We have to push our kids to excel in school no matter what, because this, if you're thinking about the next step, this is something that I don't think we push as much. Right. Because our history is different.
And we're also indifferent. You know, we talk about education as far as parenting, you know, well, when I was a kid, this and that, the other. But when we're indifferent, that means we really don't care. And see, a lot of times we don't like to mention the fact that a person that's indifferent when it comes to education, we don't do anything. Now, we may talk or we may not talk, but a person who's indifferent is a person that just sits on the sideline. Now, when something happens, we complain, but yet we don't do anything to help the problem that we see with our children every day, even when it comes to just in our own homes, you know. And if we can't, and if we haven't been educated to teach our children, we don't have anything practical that we do with our children on a daily basis or a weekly basis to try to help them so that they will learn that what they're being taught in many instances should be challenged, and so that they should be able to try to help and do for themselves.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it from this perspective too. Also, we're not starting from the same place that many other people are starting from. A lot of like kids today, a lot of times they come home with homework that their parents can't help them with. So if your parents can't help you because they haven't been at, some of these people, they never graduated high school as parents or never went to college or anything like that. Sometimes these kids are coming up, they're the first generation college. In other communities, that may not be the case because like you were talking about back in the 1800s, we coming out of a time when we couldn't read or write, we'll be murdered. So we're starting further back than everybody else was. With the white people, they were reading, writing, and doing all the stuff. They had colleges. We just started having colleges in the late 1800s. So we're not starting from the same spot to compare ourselves like that. But I'm saying if a generation or so back, 2 generations back, it was only a certain percentage of us graduating high school. Many of us was, well, I'm going to work on the farm. I'm going to do this for work on somebody else's farm, and graduating high school wasn't getting us the prestigious jobs and income. So a lot of times, 3 or 4 generations, our grandparents probably didn't graduate high school because that wasn't a thing that they looked forward to, that they didn't see opportunities after that. Some of them went out there, I got to learn a trade. I can learn a trade when I'm 15 and I don't want to go to college. But then I'm looking at when I was coming up, it was a good thing to graduate high school. Nowadays, it's expected that you go to college. You know, so I'm thinking the standards are changing as generations go on, but it wasn't like that for them.
Right. Dr. Amos Wilson, who I'm sure you've heard of and many of our audience have heard of, he has a lot of sayings that he said, and he said in one of his books about education, he says that the purpose of education is not to get a good job. Now, we know that we need to survive, but he says the purpose of education is to secure the survival of a people. In other words, he's looking at the group dynamics when it comes to education. And I think that's something, too, that we have to look at, because the system that our children are in now, they're not even on that level. And even many of us are not. Like, say what you and I are doing now, whether people agree or not. We're talking about a people. We're talking about what can we do as a people to better ourselves as a group of people. Right. And this is what he was talking about, because he says education, and I'm quoting him. He says education is not about schooling. It's not about grades. It's not about job training. It's about power. It's about survival. And it's about group development. So he's talking about how many of our children don't get that because we don't understand our reality, as you said earlier, are different. Our reality is totally different from other kids because of what we struggle with, what we deal with, and what they deal with. So he's talking about problem solving. And if a person goes to any institution or any kind of academics, if they're not teaching them how to look at our situation and help get us out of that mess, or at least attempt to, then he says that's miseducation.
Right. Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm trying to grasp everything that he's saying, because in reality, you have to deal with your environment.
Mm-hmm.
And in our environment, money is power.
Mm-hmm.
We're in capitalism. We're not going to change the fact that we're in capitalism. If I say, well, you know what, I don't even care about my kid going to school.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking like that, then the flunking kid rate doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
With your grades you're getting in school doesn't matter, because the education that they're getting there doesn't take them anywhere
Mm-hmm.
to do. But I don't feel like that's because we're in this society where you have to have some type of degree or something to be able to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I see is the problem is we're not creating jobs for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't know how to do accounting, which is math and all these things like this,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to have a business unless you have a business where you're fixing shoes
Mm-hmm.
or doing something like that? But you're still going to have some type of accounting, because the technology has passed in a fast rate us by.
Mm-hmm.
Because many of us that was saying to just get this type of degree, or like Booker T. Washington said, just learn a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time that was valid. Learning a trade
Mm-hmm.
would get you money,
Right.
as opposed, because they're not hiring us.
Mm-hmm.
So do what you have to do at that time. But I'm thinking about what Dr. Amos Wilson was saying about the education. That's fine. And if we're not getting educated in school, that's fine. We could say that, but we still need it, because that's the other end of that is the jobs, because we're still going to them to get jobs.
Mm-hmm. And I think when he says education, he's saying what you and I are both saying, but I think he's looking at it not just like the books and all that type of thing. He's talking about the end result. In other words, these are the questions that we have to answer. When you go to an educational institution, who's going to benefit from your education? In other words, if you're educated in math and you're making bombs to kill people in Africa or to kill Black people, and you could care less, then that education is not really doing us any service as a people. Who's going to benefit from education? If I walk the streets at night and I have taught some Black boys and young girls that my life is precious, people that look like you, then I don't have to worry about them knocking me over the head and trying to kill me and rob me, because they value me, because they've been taught that Black life, all life is value, but they've been taught how to treat people. Whereas in other places, they teach us how to destroy. They teach us how to make things to hurt people, and they don't look at the human life. All the people we talk about in our fantastic play, which I want to give you props that you wrote, The Revolution Continues, all of that had to do with some type of education as far as what people did to help our people. All those names we mentioned, they all had to go through the system, but they also understood that when it comes down to it, regardless of what they were taught, they looked at our lives to say, we have to do what we can to stop what the miseducation had done to hurt us as a people. So I think he's talking in terms of trying to make sure that we solve our problems, because we're the ones that have to solve
and then
problems.
that's going a different way from education. That's what I'm saying. If now you said something, you say, like, if you go about the community and you talk to these kids and you tell them about value in life, that's good if they're not starving.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get in, or if they're not on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
because many of us know in our community, loved ones and family ones will steal from you and rob from you, and either sometimes kill people that they know for what they need. And that's going further than just hunger. But I'm saying, when it's a dog-eat-dog world and somebody else is creating that in our communities, you're going to see the crime explode, whether they love Black people or not, because they're like, hey, I got to eat, you know, and that's eating is going to be in my community sometime. You could have somebody that's on drugs and they could love Black people, but once they get on drugs, you know, they're going to be still, because that drug is controlling their mind, but somebody else is controlling that input into our community. I think it's a lot of work that we have to do if we're going to look at education or the education system. That's what we're actually talking about. The system failing our kids. Are we sending our kids into a failing system? And we know that the system, many of us don't know that. Many of us that don't know that because they'll be happy that their kid is passing their grades and they'll post it on social media. My daughter is on the honors, but some of us look at it like, yeah, that's great. And you shouldn't poo-poo on anything because you need to excel. If you look at anybody that's doing great, you think Martin Luther King, we're going to say that his education was meaningless or nothing. He went to a HBCU. He was graduating college 16 years old. He was a smart man that was there to lead us. So W.B. Du Bois, he went to Harvard, Harvard or whatever, was that his education meaningless when he's writing books on improving ourselves?
Right. But the education that they got, they didn't take that education and use it against their people. Everything that they did, they used that education, W.E.B. Du Bois and all of these people, they took their education, regardless of where they went, and they begin to look at it socially. How can I use what I've done to help us as a people?
And that's what I'm saying. So if you look at, it's not the education point, it's like the mindset of the person getting the education. Becoming a doctor, if you get your MD, your doctorate or whatever, and you are not just out there helping everybody, but you turning back and you saying, well, I need to help my people, then you're doing a lot more for our progress than someone that gets a doctorate and they open up an office and everybody. Now, I'm not now because see, this is the point with that.
Okay.
If you're a doctor at a high level and the world is recognized, the nation is recognizing you. That's the image that helps our kids too. I know I'm not going to act like that's nothing. That image helps our people. If you're a person that's helping our kids or helping our people with your degrees or whatnot, that's a different level.
Right.
But we have to have more people that's going into these institutions, getting that type of degree with an education, and then thinking about us, thinking about themselves,
exactly,
or just trying to fit in,
exactly, and not thinking that when they get a piece of paper that they're better than other people, or they're looking down on people, or they're trying to, as you said, poo-poo on people that look like them because they have something that others don't have. Because we read the newspaper, we look at social media, we look at these news channels, and they tell us that the black man and the black woman is this and that and the other in a negative light, and then we repeat that because now we have a little money and we live in a nice house, or we had a nice vehicle. So we start taking what we've learned and we start using that against our people. And I think that's very, very problematic. And the people you just mentioned, every one of them, they had the same issues, but at the same time, wherever they were educated, they used everything to try to help rise a people that was being oppressed.
Yeah, I think that happens with us normally. People, we compare ourselves to other people. We compare our education or our job status to other people. And if you're getting into a discussion about helping our people and somebody doesn't know a lot of the history, then we say, well, I know all this history. You don't know as much. And then you think that you can speak to them in a condescending form or fashion because you dropped out of high school and here you are trying to tell me, and I did all of this, jumped all these hurdles, and we may have the same goals, but you are not equipped to talk. I got in the conversation on social media about slavery, someone talking about slavery and things like this. And the guy come on there, since you don't know, y'all don't read, let me tell y'all about slavery in Africa and da, da, da. So I jumped in. He was talking about, well, black people own slaves. That's all true. If you don't know that and you engaging with somebody, you're going to look dumbfounded or looks dumb to them or the other people that's watching because he's hitting you with things that you don't know. But I hit him with, that had nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Slavery and the Aztec culture has nothing to do with what we're talking about when we're talking about slavery in America. We're talking about conditions and racism. In Africa, an African enslaving an African, that's not racism. That's an institutionalized system to make money. But we're talking different things. So if you don't know, it's our jobs to teach those that don't know so that they'll know and that it won't be foreign to them when we're talking about what we need to do as far as our school system.
And that, you're telling the truth, but when you really look at what we're talking about, this is something that there should be some type of action. There should be something that we're going to actually do, something that's practical. And a lot of times when we talk about the issue, we like to conflate it or we like to confuse it. We talk about what's not going on. We talk about the system. But again, we don't talk about what practical things can we do. Like you mentioned earlier at the outset, some basic things that we can do. Maybe you didn't graduate. Maybe you didn't have but a 7th grade education, so to speak. But yet you have children that may not be able to read or they're struggling. There are some practical things you can do. You can even take your children to a certain location and help them learn. If you don't know, as far as now, that's going to require commitment. See, and that's going to require some seriousness, some dedication. And a lot of times we like to look at the problem and talk about it, but there's nothing that we want to do. A young lady asked me the other day, and I think I took her up on it because I was going to do it anyway. You and I talked about it. Okay, what can we do to help these kids that are struggling reading? Well, we can have an after school program, but we got to have people that's going to be committed to being there to help us, even if they can't read. Be there to help us. What can you do? Everybody can do something. You can't do what I can do. I can't do what you can do, but we can both put our heads together, and whatever education we have, we can use it to better these kids that's struggling reading. And to me, that's practical. But a lot of people don't want to talk about getting there. They just want to talk about what we need to do.
Yeah, what you're talking about is solutions right now.
Yeah,
and that's fine. We could talk about the solutions, like what you said about someone that may not be able to read well or whatever, wanting to take their kids because they see the importance. A lot of us, we have to let them know that there is an importance. That's what I'm saying. Many of them is like, oh, he's just simple, but it's like, no, we have to show them that it is very important for us to move in a certain direction. Many of us are going all over the place. Many of us just saying, oh, well, these kids are smart and whatever. Well, if your kid is not doing well in math or reading or something like that, then try to get them into something, have things that's affordable to them. And I don't mean price wise, it's affordable. Okay, we're doing something at the library. But if your kids are flunking, if you can afford to do that, or have someone pick your kids up, if you need that, we got to create those type of atmospheres. But we also got to create the atmosphere in people's mind that these things are needed. Because if they don't believe it's needed, then they're not going to send their kids, or they're not going to care about, if they don't have kids, funding something like that, saying, hey, donate something or donate time. They don't see the importance of it, they're not going to come.
Right. And I'm talking to those who feel as though once you retire, you just sit back and just ride off into the sunset while the issue that we're talking about is continuing to happen. I'm saying that every one of us, there's something, if we look deep within ourselves, to say, what can we do, or what can we suggest, or what can we put together to try to help the situation that we find our children in? If the school system is failing our children, and we know it is, then it's incumbent upon us to say, as a group of people, we have to come together and see if there's something, regardless of how big or small it is, what can we do instead of just sitting around? And I'm not saying you or I am, but I'm saying that's proactive. That's not waiting until the house caves in to say, look at the house is caving in.
What if the school system is failing our kids and we don't know? You said the school system is failing our kids, and we know. There's some people that don't know that it's the system. They blaming the child not doing what you need to do, or they don't believe that the system.
Yeah, and you can't. Everyone is not going to listen to what you and I are saying and saying, okay, you guys just turned the light on in my head, I'm going to start doing it. But to those who understand the seriousness and the commitment that's involved, them the ones I'm talking to, because we're not going to ever get everybody to stop what they're doing and start making a transformation. It's never been that way. Even during slavery, it wasn't like that. We were killed, we were hung to learn how to read and all these things, but yet there still was a core of people who had the mindset that we have, as far as what are we going to do about this, instead of just shining light on it. But then even with our comments, I'm sure there are some people that's going to comment to say, here are some practical things, hopefully, that we can do that's going to help the situation of this, as opposed to just talking about it and letting it go the way it's going.
It's a saying that says it's the job of the civilized to teach the uncivilized how to be civilized. It's the job of the educated to teach the uneducated the importance of education. That's what I feel.
Okay.
I think that's the job that we have to look at. If these kids are not doing their homework, or whatever they're doing, and we feel like that's as important for them to get a passing grade. I mean, you're sending them there. Either you're sending them there to fail, or you're sending them there to exceed and excel. It's two words I do want to bring up. Okay. One is systemic and one is systematic. And it's a reason I want to bring these words up. They sound the same. They're two different things. A lot of time we misuse the words. They're two different things. Systematic is a routine. How you go about doing something. And with your school, it's like how we start the day off. Y'all do something, this, and this, and it keeps things simple. You already know what we're doing. In the school system, they have a systematic grade system where you go to first grade, second grade, third grade, and they teach them something in each one. The multitude, some people excel, but they do it in a certain way. That's what systematic means. A particular way that you do something. You can wash your car. You can always start from the back,
Mhm.
go around. That's systematic. Systemic means that it's embedded in the system.
Mhm.
It's in the core of the system. So those are two different things. You can have a job where systemic uh, corruption.
Mhm.
That means at every level there's corruption. That has nothing to do with something systematic. And the reason I'm bringing in the difference between these two things is because the same way that we are being miseducated,
Mhm.
they're doing systematically, and it's systemic because the racism is systemic. We have to undo it or re-educate in that same manner. We have to be systematic in our approach
Mhm.
on how we want to do things. You can't just jump in the middle
Mhm.
and say, well, we're going to do this and we're going to make everybody know, because you got to make people understand that this is important before they come.
Mhm.
But the job that we have to do is both systematic,
Mhm.
and then we have to make it systemic in our society, that Black love, like you was talking about, meeting people, unity.
Mhm.
We want to make that systemic on every level. Kids in school not bullying Black kids, understanding love and things like this. Now, everybody's not going to participate, but what kids do, they will join the norm, the group.
Mhm.
They don't want to stand out and be laughed at and things like that.
Mhm.
The next thing with making things systematic, the unity.
Mm.
You know, we always talk about going to Black businesses. Make that a norm, make that systemic in our culture. When someone brings something foreign to our community, a grocery store, something like that, if it's a Black owned one, it should be already known on every level that I want to patronize me first, us first, and see the love in us first. That should be systemic.
Mm.
And things that we want to do should be systematic. We got to come up with a systematic plan that we're all working together.
Right.
If all of us was out here trying to wash cars, I'm doing the wheels, you doing the hood, somebody else doing the windows, we can't all do it at one time.
Mhm.
Or I'm doing the windows sometime because we're messing up.
Mhm.
We say, hey, you take care of this. Even when you say the plays,
Mhm.
okay, you got this, I got this, we're going to do this. We try to make it run smooth.
Mhm.
We can't have everybody trying to direct.
Right.
Everybody trying to tell something or do something like
Exactly.
that. So we have to approach these problems in both. And I'm say this when I'm saying systematic, it has to be some erratic too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say that with your school, that's part of the erratic because you're doing it. I don't see the system out there saying to do it. I'm doing it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have to make do with what we can do right now,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to aim to have a systematic way approach to our plan, our game plan.
Well said. Well said. You know, one of the things that I think we all, and I don't think I say that a lot, but I really know this is one of the things that we have to do or instill in our children. And I don't care what type of background one has had when it comes to the system is failing our children, and then we're letting it happen. Our children need one word. They need way more than one word, but this is a key word: confidence. You would be surprised, Kev, how many students don't have confidence. And a lot of it, we know it should start at home, because when you go to a building and you're not being taught, I'm talking about at a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
the confidence, like I think it was Booker T. Washington or Malcolm X who said that they wanted to be something, and then the teacher told them, you'll never be that.
All of them.
So it breaks them down to where now, kids, they're being said and done in subtle ways where they don't feel that they have confidence. They think that they have no ability. Their judgment is skewed. And so what they're finding out is they begin to doubt their self-worth. And as a parent and as an educator, as a teacher, as a Black male, as a whomever you want to put in that's one of the things that we need to do to our children to instill in them, as opposed to the opposite. Like you mentioned earlier, you were saying with somebody will see a guy that can't read and they'll say, well, he'll never be anything.
Right.
And this is all this person has heard all their lives. But of all people, we should be the ones to build and boost their confidence, not this inflated ego mess, but just to be honest that you can do what you need to do to help your people if you apply yourself and you work hard. And the other things that we often share with our children is we have to let them know that you have to be committed. You have to be dedicated. You have to be open to learning so that you can do what you need to do, because the confidence, that's a big one, man.
That comes from home.
Yeah.
It should never come from outside of home.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So okay, like you say, like Malcolm X said that. He said that he wanted to be a lawyer. They're like, well, Malcolm, nobody want to go to a Black lawyer. Right. Your own people don't even want, blah, blah, blah. And that's, one thing. But And that set him on the road that he was on.
Mhm.
But that came from home. But we can't control that because you got to look at some of these people's homes.
Mhm.
This is something that the system has already worked against us
Mhm.
to not having a good home. And I'm gonna say this: they always say it takes a village to raise a child.
Mhm.
What if they corrupt the village?
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
kind of child is the village going to raise?
Right.
You know, if they know that, they saying that, we saying that. If we say it's a village, it takes a village, then we got to build the village.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that village is tight. We got to make sure that the village is not falling apart, because they know that. And if they saying, oh, it's going to take a village, you're going to not let us raise or corrupt your child.
Mhm.
What if we corrupt the village?
Yeah.
And if they don't do it if somebody says they're going to poison you, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
If I gave you some water with poison in it and you drank it and you got sick, you know who poisoned you.
Mhm.
But if I put a little bit in, and I
Mhm.
put a little bit in, so every time, and I say, how you doing today, Job? Man, I don't know, man, I'm feeling a little under the weather,
Mhm.
but we're gonna keep going. I see you tomorrow, the next, and it's a little, then you keep sipping that water.
Mhm.
It's not chopping you down at once, because you'll know that who did it and how it happened.
Mhm.
All you know is you're not feeling good. Our
Right.
village is not feeling good.
Well,
And our village is trying to raise kids, and they're doing the job that the system and the systemic racist system
Yeah.
has designed at every level for
Yeah.
us to fail, and our villages are failing.
yeah, and you got to realize something too. A lot of us have been miseducated as
Yeah,
far as,
that's what
'cause
I'm
see,
saying.
I had to go back, and relearn a lot of just about everything, my curriculum, everything. I had to undo what was done after all these years of thinking a certain way. And back to the point that you made, which I tell people this, and I mean it, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but back in the day, of course, it took a village to raise a child, because that village was intact. They understood what was going on, and it was maybe a smaller clique, but they all had the same goal in mind, which was survival. But today, I don't want everyone putting their hands or their minds or their mouths on my child, because I don't want them to corrupt my child's mind, even though they may mean well, their intentions
Right.
may be well. I don't want that. So I hear that often, and people still living back in the past, where theoretically back in the day, yeah, it took a village to raise a child. But today, I don't want everyone to be talking to my child and teaching her or him something that I know is just not, it's
Right.
not fair, it's not right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying
Yeah,
on that one.
and the village part of what I think of when I think of a village, and I don't think we ever had that type of village unless it was imposed upon us to be segregated. Once the floodgates open, or we think they opened, then we jumped and
Mhm.
we left. We were better off, to me, when we had our own schools.
Of course,
And we
of
but we
course.
only had it because we were forced to.
Mhm.
We wanted to go to their schools. Their schools was better. Yeah,
Mhm.
their schools was teaching them how to be engineers. Our schools was teaching us how to work for
Mm.
engineers, to be an apprentice at the highest.
Mhm.
You know, our schools wasn't teaching us to do, unless we did it in our own communities.
Mhm.
We did have the Black Wall Streets, and we were made to do that. But now, what our community is pushing us to do, most of the time when people send their kids to school, they're sending them to get a job.
Mhm.
So you send it, get good grades so you could get a job. They're not sending them to school to build a job and have their business.
Exactly. And that's what we talk about a lot too. We always start off by asking some of the newer students when we first get them, what do you want to be in life? And it always has to do with working for someone else. And so we try to explain to them, that's important. But then, what about working for yourself and having other people work for you? So, we have to create, as you mentioned earlier, we have to create that kind of mindset, because that's the mindset that is under attack. And it's not just under attack by the system. It's under attack by many of us, because again, we have been miseducated.
Yeah, and so we're part of the system.
Exactly.
We're doing the work of the system.
The very
that has
thing that we're talking
miseducated
about.
us.
Exactly.
Right. That's what the system knows. The system knows.
Right.
So they're going to send school teachers that's going to believe in the system.
Mhm.
They're going to send leaders in our community because they created them.
Mhm.
They went to their schools. They told them the importance of democracy and all
Mhm.
this, America great. And if you do what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it, if you fail, it's because you didn't put forth the effort.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily so, but we have people in our community
Yes,
and
sir.
leaders in our community
That's
that
right.
believe that.
That's
So
right.
when they see us failing, when the system is designed for us to fail, they see us failing. Instead of pointing at the system,
Mhm.
they pointing at the individual.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
victims.
And there's a gentleman that he retired as a school teacher, and we're good friends. And every time we bring up the subject of the importance of the African male and female in the United States of America, he lets me speak, but then he always goes back to but. And he's been miseducated for all these years, and in his mind, Dick Kev, in his mind, and when I talk to him, I look in his eyes, and he really believes that, because this is what they taught him. And now he has he's retired and he's getting a teacher's salary and all this. And so he feels as though many of us are just in the way. And I'm trying to tell him that if it wasn't for the people that came before you, I can't say it on this show, but you wouldn't even be in the position that you're in, because you're not looking at the progress from the standpoint of what the way was paid for us. You're looking at it from what they taught you, because you went to school and got your degree. And now you honestly feel that the achievements of many of our people, it didn't make a difference. And that's sad.
They think the difference that it made is you being able to go to school and teach the system, like they think that got them where they're at, and that they're in a good place to talk and teach us. And you've been programmed as part of the system. You're a part of the system. And that's where I say systemic. That's where racism comes systemic. The parts doesn't matter. It's what the product that they're trying to produce. You can have a black teacher teaching black kids something backwards and keep producing backwards because they believe in backwards, and that's a lot of things that has happened to us. We have people, celebrities and things like that in place that's doing that believe it. Don't kneel on my flag. They are protective of the American flag or whatever it is. They thinking that voting is the only solution that's out there, that all this protesting and all this thing. And America was born on that.
Oh yeah.
The Tea Party, what I'm saying? Everything the colonies came about with a revolutionary mindset. Then they're telling us don't have a revolutionary mindset because things ain't working out for us, and we have a mindset. They're gonna tell us how to protest because it's gonna make them comfortable. Well, if you don't like something, go about do it this way. And that's the problem that I was saying. It's systemic. That's what we have to realize, but we have to be systemic to solve the problem.
Exactly.
It's systematic. We have to be systematic. And what I'm saying with that is the solutions. Let's talk about the solutions now. How can we, as African Americans, deal with the school system that we're at right now, and what's the goal for the future?
Well, one of the things we can do, and this may be trite to some people, but I remember not just when I was growing up, and it's probably still being done now because I'm not ubiquitous, I'm not everywhere. But one of the things I think that we've lost is storytelling. You can educate someone. I remember my uncles used to always tell me stories. I would ask them something, instead of telling me the answer, they would tell me a story. But then the answer was in the story. And a lot of times when we have our children around us, we don't tell them a story that has a good meaning or a message about life, about what to avoid, what to stay away from, what to do. This is an education right here that's a solution, as opposed to saying, well, don't listen to what they're saying, but you see them most of the time and they look up to you, hopefully, and you have a greater influence on your children. You should have. And when they're around you, I think there's a lot of things that we can sit down and say, these are some practical tips that we can do. And I go back to, like I said, storytelling, just something as simple as if you do something like you want to do something, and instead of me just telling you the answer and you go about your way, I can tell you a story about a hot stove, right. And if you mess around and put your hand on it, you're going to get burned. And later on, I even have it happen to me when I was a lot younger. I would when something would happen to me, I would remember what someone told me all those years later about the lesson that they were trying to teach me to make sure that I was a better person.
Yeah, I think we have to create those type of atmospheres, not just in individual speaking, because some people don't want to sit. The kids move fast. Time is different for them. They only been here so long. An hour to me, I've been alive for so many hours. It don't matter. They only been alive for so many hours. That's so if you tell them to wait an hour, that's a long time. For me, an hour from now is nothing. That's why we put them on punishment. You can't go, and it's like killing them. You got people that could do prison time, and it's like, this, that, and the other. But I'm talking about the differential in age groups. I think that we have to create an atmosphere to everywhere that they're turned, they're seeing positivity and blackness. If that's what we're trying to build, they have to be able to look at TV and see TV shows that's showing blackness and empowerment and things like that. Not these buffoon shows where we tap dancing or, all these things like that. So just getting whipped and slavery. That's fine. But as educational, they have to hear it in their music.
Yeah.
They have to, the people that they look up to should be role models that's having the same type of values that we want them to be looking up to, as opposed to, I like this basketball player, this football player, and it doesn't matter whatever they're doing in their social life. They're not emitting that positivity.
Mhm.
We have to control the environment that we
Good.
are raising our kids in.
That's good.
Going to the schools
Mhm.
and having a black male teacher,
Mhm.
a figure.
I was just going to say that.
It's very few of us,
Mhm.
so the boys don't have nothing to look up to.
Mhm.
You know, and so people they don't understand that's important. So what we should be doing is be pushing more black male students.
Well, and on top of that too, the PTA, your child is going to a system that's educating the child, and you don't even know what they're teaching the child, and you
Right.
don't have enough gumption to get up and say, you know what, I'm just going to go sit down after school for about an hour and see what because they're going to tell you in the PTA meeting. And then when you hear something that we can attack to say, hey, this is not going to happen, then as a group of men or whomever women, we say, hold on for a second. This is not going to be acceptable to us. But if we don't ever participate, and when they do things to us and then we cry about it and complain, it's like, you don't even know, you don't, one of the things I don't get is we spend a lifetime not knowing who's in front of our children. I'm talking about the educator.
Never going to meet the teacher.
We don't know that we don't know that person can be a pervert. That person can be some of anything. And sometimes when you show that you're involved, that's going to put a red flag up to the teacher where they're going to say, I know that I'm going to do this right because I know Mr. Kevin is going to come up here because he's always in this child's life. He even calls me sometimes and asks me questions about, okay, how is my child doing? And not only that, how are you doing? What are you doing? Right. See, and that's accountability, Kev.
And that's asking your kid, what did your teacher teach you today? When I was coming up, my dad was high on education. Just reading, math, and all that stuff, grades, and your conduct. That was big. Like, you could say, well, I'm happy, I got a B+. He's gonna look right here, you got satisfactory. Well, that's good. And most of us know. No. Why is that not an E? What's the highest you could get in your conduct? It's not satisfactory. We don't do satisfactory. So get the belt. You know what I mean? So that's how it was, man.
Right.
But we have to have parents that think like that, but we have to create that situation. Somebody that's a parent now, that's a fight. I think Frederick Douglass said something about that, about trying to teach a man, as opposed to a kid. So we have to create that. This has to be systematic. It has to be something that we as a group of people start doing and have it across the board, pretty much, not 100%. I don't care if it's 60% or it's 40% in 10 years, but that's a growth and it starts spreading. We have to think about having, like, you have your private school, and if you look at how many kids, San Antonio is not the average large city because it's only 100,000 black people in San Antonio. It's 2 million people here. That's not the average. If you look at the United States, we 13-something percent, 14% of the population. And here, it's not a lot of us, but just to do what you're doing, that means and if you look at the statistics, it's 7.5 million black children, school grade children in America. Most of them are getting miseducated. Most of us has been miseducated.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to act like it's a burning building, it's emergency, because Malcolm X didn't come up in the school system where he dropped out and everything. And look what he went on his own learning. So I'm not saying I didn't go to a pro-black school system or anything like that. But most of the things that I know now, I didn't get in college. I got in during lunchtime at college or my break between classes. I went to the library to learn on my own what I wanted to know. You got to have that type of effort. And then I got a book, it grows, it continues to grow. So you got to instill that in your kids. We got to instill that in our kids, not just our own kids, but do something community wise to where I don't care if you're already a senior.
Right.
Hey, did you know this? Come see this program. Come hear Anthony Browder speak. I'm going to invite you, teach them something so that they could become curious about what they didn't learn in the school system.
And you also have to teach them about survival strategies, because there's a lot of things going on that our children need to know, that if you don't do this, you're not going to survive. Right. And so a lot of times we don't look at the warnings. In other words, what should we be telling children? And this is rhetorical though. The warnings, what to avoid when you go to any kind of educational facilities. There are a lot of things you should avoid, but a lot of our children don't know that because they look at TV, or the parents make them think they're living in this fairy tale place where they figure that when you meet different people, everybody's going to like you. Everybody that looks like you they're your friends. And they're not telling them that when you think about life, there's going to be obstacles that you're going to face. And I'm talking about people that look like you and people that don't look like you. And so you have to learn, because that was one of the lessons that I had to learn the hard way, because everybody that looked like me, I really thought that they were for me.
Right. A lot of us learn that when we're coming up because our parents will say, all your friends are not really your friends. I remember my parents saying that. They look at friends that we have and we'll be like, oh, ingratiated with our friends at that bond. And then it'd be somebody that end up doing something. They say, well, I told you, all your friends is not your friends. All the skins is not on the same team. And that's because things are systemic. And they are creating things that's systemic. It's people that rob me that look like me. If they have, because they're in the system.
Yeah.
It's systemic. And they're creating people dangers within us, and that's part of the plan. That's why I'm saying we got to learn things that's systemic. When we say systemic racism, even a black person doing something to me could be part of the systemic system because they're creating it. And that's what I implore people to learn about everything. Listen to people that's talking. I don't care if you don't agree with everything. Go about learning from what Malcolm X was saying, what Angela Davis and them was saying, what Assata Shakur. When you go back and you start looking at what was happening in our history, you're going to get a better understanding of what's happening now.
Wow, that's good. And one of the things I harp on with my students, Kevin, is problem solving. We have to learn how to solve problems because there's going to be problems that we're going to face every day. But as we continue to grow and age, there's going to be problems within our family, within our community, and we have to know what to do when there's a problem instead of just complain about the problem. But we have to be proactive to where we can't be afraid to address or attack the problem.
Right.
If you ask 15 black men, okay, if me and 15 black men came to you and complained about the system, Kev, the school system is not great. The school system is miseducating our children, and I'm sick of this. I'm tired of that. And then you say to all of us, well, John, you and your guys, why don't y'all come to the school? Because I want to be there, and as black men, we're going to sit down and talk to the people that you're talking about. Oh no, Kev, man, no, ain't nothing gonna change, man. So see, now you just got a lot of lip service, and you got people that's not going to bust a grape.
And to me, you just maneuver different. If I know you're not going to do that, then I have to decide. So, well, let's get together and discuss about what we could do about it. I'm gonna let you tell me what we could do about it. I'm going to give my 2 cents. I may have more than 2 cents. I may have a whole $1.50 change, but I'm just going to get 2 cents because I want you to understand and realize. And I might say, well, if we do that, what about this? Well, and we're going to talk about it. I don't want to seem like I'm the one that's smart and I'm steering. I want y'all to come up with solutions. Then what are we going to do? That's the thing. So, man, what can we do?
Just complain. Some of us is complaining.
And I said that all we're going to do is complain, then we're not going to. But I'm saying like solutions. I think we as a black community have to work at putting together from the first grade, the younger grades, some type of school system. If we're not going to do that, then we have to deal with our kids at home and before sending them to the school and let them understand. If they understand at home and they get stuff at home, then when they go to school, they're going to realize that the school is not teaching them correctly. Because you see, they're changing the curriculum in school. They're changing. It wasn't slavery. These was indentured servants. These were people that was working. And what were they getting from? Well, they was getting a place to live and food to eat. They wasn't getting paid. They're changing the mindset of America. We have to change and deal with that too. One of the things I did want to say is you don't prepare for the past. You prepare for the future. You learn the past. You don't prepare for the past. So a lot of people say, well, go learn your history. You're learning your history so you can prepare yourself for the future.
And not just for facts.
Right.
So, and that's so true because we have to take education seriously. We really do as a group of people. And that's something that, we could sit around and talk about. How serious are you about education? Okay, we're talking about it. And then what kind of education are we talking about? Well, what do we mean when we say education? Are we just talking about math, science, or are we talking about life? Are we talking about survival strategies? Are we talking about how to survive in a racist system that's never going to stop until you leave this earth? Things of that nature. How serious are we as a people when we discuss the word education? Or is it just something that we're so used to because we went through a system and now we see everything in the eyes of ourselves as we were taught? Yeah,
like the quote you gave from Dr. Amos Wilson, he was talking about education is preparing yourself to make it in society. It's not about knowing math problems and things that you'll never use just to be doing it. So we have to let our kids and our people, not just our kids, we got to let our people understand that there is a goal that we're trying to reach. We may still have to go work for somebody. It's not like we can't, Black unemployment is high. We need to own our own business and it's going to happen. abracadabra. No, so this is something we have to work for in the future. This is something we have to tell our kids. I work for somebody that don't look like me,
Mhm.
and I could be laid off at any time because they don't really care. And this is what's happening. So we can't do Christmas sometimes. They don't care.
Mhm.
And we got to let them know reality of what we're looking at and prepare them for the system they're going into. Long as they have a goal and an understanding of what their job is when they get out of school, it's not going to be you're going to go work for Black. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but you have to have a goal and understand where you're going. What you're doing now is going to reach that goal. You may not see it to come to fruition, but we should have our own schools, whether it's private schools or whatever, and we should have that to where we control our curriculum. Since we don't have it, we got to get involved in the school system that we have, the school board. Go down there and voice our opinion.
Of course.
If that's not happening, then we should have programs outside of school that people are sending their kids to, that they could come hear you talk or hear me talk at some library conference room or something.
And see that's where it goes back to creating that mindset, because our mindset is so far removed. See, what you're saying now, it sounds foreign in many people's ears because we've never been told that. We've never been taught that. We've just taken the system that we were given and we rolled with it. And now we're older, and now we're hearing something that's radical, something that's revolutionary, something that's different. And we're saying, wait a minute, what are these guys talking about? I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. I went through the system, and we're not looking at the damage that has been done and continuously that's being done to these kids that graduate and can't read, can't write, can't comprehend, can't do anything but fight. Because that's what they've been told. Well, when you go to school, if somebody looks at you side-eyed, you bust them in the nose and all this, and it's like, no, you go home. Yeah, man, I did this, and so we're applauding them as opposed to saying, but what have you learned?
Yeah, or these kids, they could dance. It's like whatever things the kid's gonna go to. I remember high school, all this stuff, the talent shows. You had a group of kids that was good dancers, and they put on a good talent show, and everybody would think they was popular. But you don't know what their grades was, whatever. But then you look at what happened to them. But kids are not going to listen to you at your time because they think that their time is the time that's happening. Your time was the olden days or whatever. But if whatever it is that your kid could do, you have to recognize their abilities. Maybe school is not their thing, then teach them a trade.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna say this about my granddad.
Okay.
I learned this about my granddad. Now, what happened? My dad was the oldest son. He had it was 6 boys.
Okay.
And what it was is the older boys. It was 3 of them older, and 3 of them younger. So my granddad, from my dad point of view, my uncle, one of my youngest uncles, he told me, he said, dad taught my dad and them learn the trade, basically learn how to shine shoes, learn how to cut hair. Something they all knew how to cut hair. I used to go get my hair cut from my uncles, or my dad used to cut my hair. We never had to go to the barber unless, I didn't want them. The younger ones was taught to go to college and to learn whatever. But the difference was the times that was happening. When my dad and them were born, the shoe shining stuff, that was how you kept money. The expectations for Black people was different. When it made it beneficial to go to college, when the colleges start opening up, then he changed how he was teaching his kids. The younger boys got that. My dad and them was learn how to hunt, learn how to fish. You're going to always get food, living at that time. Their younger siblings was taught, go to school, learn how to do something business minded, whatever, because times was changing for Black people. And that's what I'm saying. We have to be ahead of the times, or forecasting the times, and pushing our kids to where they are controlling their own destiny.
Yeah, that's so true. We discussed failing our kids, how the actual system, the educational system, is failing our children. And then we also challenged us to do something about. We're basically letting it happen, many of us, and that shouldn't be our mantra, that we've allowed this to happen. And now that our children are older and now they're becoming adults, and all we can do now is just shrug our shoulders, because we were none in their lives educationally, and now we're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
We're going to pay for it.
I'm gonna read some comments. It's Josh's fault that we haven't read the comments, but we're gonna get to the comments now. I appreciate Marie. She said, "Hotep brothers." Lade, she said, "Good evening, gentlemen." Sakina, she gave the greetings. Walaikum assalam, sister. Coretta Cole, she said, "Blessings. I appreciate y'all showing up." Barbara, she said, "Hotep." Josiah said, "Powerful dialogue. This is great. We appreciate you showing up and appreciate the comment." Nikita said, "Finally able to jump on. I appreciate you coming in here." And she also said hi. And we got to teach our kids to have a goal and to save Save. Okay, save who? Us or money? So yeah, I appreciate the comments. Let me see, what's the next one? She said, yes, nurture their gifts. Look at your kids, the talents that they have. That's me saying that, but she said nurture gifts. She also said, whatever the child gifts are, I appreciate that. She said, I'm so happy my parents nurture my writing gift. And I appreciate you saying that, because what you are, she's a poet, for those that don't know, actress, poet, singer. I've seen you doing rap in the past and stuff. And she said, yeah, really giving some good knowledge. We appreciate that. And she said, money. I appreciate that. You have anything else, man?
Now, I want to say to all those who watch this broadcast, we've been going on this air for at least 2 years now. And I just want to say to y'all, we truly appreciate y'all being a part of our broadcast. We never take you for granted. And oftentimes, podcasters, they never thank the people because they just assume that they're going to show up. But we really don't feel that way as far as taking you for granted. We just want to say that, hey, you could have been doing something else. And to, on behalf of Kevin and I, we just love that you're able to come out and just listen to the dialogue. And then for the comments, you always comment, give us your insights into that. We honor you. We really do. We honor you because you're the type of people that's interested in seriousness, because our subject matter is always serious. And to that, I just wanted to take time out to say, we thank y'all for tuning in, and this broadcast can be seen every first and third Tuesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we just love you for your commitment to the John Kev Show.
Yeah, that was great. The words he used. I'm gonna say this broadcast can be seen anytime y'all want to. Also, y'all can play it back, have these discussions with people. Go to YouTube if you want to look for it. Go to Facebook, y'all want to look for it, and think about some of the things that we may talk about. We pick these subjects because we have a goal and an agenda, and it's not just about how we feel. You could feel totally different, but these subject matters are very important. So talk to them at Christmas dinners or whatever, or just talk to them with your friend. What do you think we should do about education? What do you think we should learn from this and that? So, these are things that should be topics of discussion. How can we improve our situation in this country and around the world?
And if you have any suggested topics, just email us at jakevshow@gmail.com. Again, that's jakevshow@gmail.com, and whatever subject you put in the address space or whatever information you give to us, we'll look at it, research it, and we'll regurgitate it and give it back to you, because that's the kind of broadcast we have.
Yeah, you got to look at the emails, man. You got to look at it. Might be 100.
He called me out. Yo, we out of here. I'm gonna deal with him after this music goes off.